thing we always got to keep in mind. Crawford don't have to give Porter an opportunity. Porter is the mandatory. He already put himself in position to fight. So all he got to do is activate his mandatory position and he will get the fight. So as far as I know, if Shawn won it, he could really get it.
I wanted to know what's your take on what's going on with the 140 division and the infamous Bob Arum with what he's doing, saying that he's willing to pay Shawn Porter $1 million in order to fight Terence Bud Crawford. Shawn Showtime Porter, who just recently went into a pay-per-view bout with Errol Spence that did great numbers and made well over $2 million, wants to pay him $1 million to go up against Terence Bud Crawford and expect Shawn Porter to take that. What do you think about that?
Right. Shawn Porter, I don't know exactly what he got paid his last fight, but I'm pretty sure he got paid more than $1 million against Formula. So that's just promoter talk. At the end of the day, remember, Terence Crawford, he's the champion. Shawn Porter is the mandatory. So when a mandatory gets activated, what usually happens is they start negotiating, so on and so forth. Once negotiations start, if they can't come to an agreement, if both teams can't come to an agreement as far as the money split or the purses, so on and so forth, it goes to PurseBid right away. Once it goes to PurseBid, what happens is the mandatory get 25% of the budget for the fighters, and the champion gets 75% of the budget, right? Now, if ESPN, if Bob Arum is willing to offer both fighters $5 million for the fight, right? So if he's saying we in a pandemic, I don't really got that much money right now, ESPN is only willing to give us $5 million. What could happen, Al Heyman, because Shawn Porter, I believe that's his manager, Al Heyman could easily be like, okay, well, PBC, we would like to take the fight because it's PurseBid. Both networks could offer money. Whoever offers the most money could actually take the fight. So PBC could be like, all right, well, both fighters worth more. This fight worth more. So we willing to offer $10 million. So if Bob Arum is not willing to top that, then what happens, PBC takes the card, take the fight, period. Then the fight takes place on PBC. So if PBC, for example, is willing to give $10 million for the fighters, then 75% of $10 million is going to go to Crawford, 25% goes to Shawn. So I know it sounds crazy what Bob said as far as the $1 million. You know what I mean? I don't agree with him. But at the end of the day, when it does go to PurseBid and both networks start negotiating, that's not going to be the case. Shawn is going to get paid way more than that. And it's just going to be up to both networks who's willing to pay more money. So if ESPN want to play games, PBC could easily take the fight and have it on pay-per-view, which most likely will do around $300K. So that $10 million, they will gain it right back. If you sell $300K on pay-per-view or close to that, that's around what, 20, 25 million revenue coming in. You could easily pay off the $10 million with no time. So that's even more money for the fighters if they does do better on pay-per-view than expected. They could end up getting more money, you know. So I don't take what Bob said verbatim. For the people that want to say, oh, see, he ducking. That's what Bob said. I just want to remind people, for the people that want to say, oh, I want to give Shawn only $1 million. At the end of the day, you guys got to remember, that's not what Terence said. Terence is the fighter. We got to judge him off being a fighter, not being a businessman. Bob is the promoter. So at the end of the day, is it true? Is Shawn worth only $1 million? Absolutely not, because Shawn is worth more. Bob is just blowing smoke. He's talking like he usually do. We already know how Bob is. I mean, he said Wilder contract ran out, you know, so we're talking about that guy. At the end of the day, when it comes to Bob, you can't take everything he says on face value, because at the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into it. I think he also brought up, I think in that interview, he also brought up the fact that if PBC want to pick up the card, they can. If it goes to PurseBid, they could pick up the fight if they want to offer more money. So he's also well aware of that as well. What's your take on all of the above?
I mean, just based off of what you said, this is just another ploy for Bob trying to avoid paying fighters what they do. Like Terence Bud Crawford, his top dude, he's underpaying him. We all know this, considering the fact that Terence Crawford, he's like, I don't know. Like when it comes to Terence Bud Crawford, I don't get what there is to hate, because this man is literally everything we want in a fighter. This man is has all the skills in the world, has all the heart in the world. This man is willing to fight anybody they put in front of him. And this man also wants to get paid for what he wants, but he delivers, so he believes that's why he should get paid. Like, he's literally everything we want a fighter to be. He's not afraid. He's a top skill fighter, and he's willing to come at anyone who they put him in front of. Like, this is what we want. So when you have a fighter like that, you treat him right. You pay him right. And Bob is clearly, he's showing his ass to Terence Crawford by saying all these things. And then he's putting Terence Crawford in a bad position where people want to make the assumption that Terence Crawford is trying to duck Shawn Porter when we know that's not the case. Even though, considering Terence Crawford has never ran from a fight, he's fought all of his mandatories, everybody they put in front of him. So, I mean, you can't take that away from Terence Crawford. This is a Bob Arum. This sounds like Bob Arum. This don't sound like Terence Crawford.
Yeah, of
course. Terence Crawford, like, it's just like when you hear Bob Arum talk, he's always like the numbers that he's coming up with these fighters. It's ridiculous. Like, the only time where I think Bob Arum ever I actually agreed with him was when they were talking about Keith Thurman, and people said that Keith Thurman wanted $10 million. Now, I don't know if that's entirely true, but if that is true, and Bob Arum said he outpriced himself, that's a fact. But Shawn Porter, this is a man who made well over $2 million fighting Errol Spence. And if you do this, and if they can't come to an agreement, which Errol Spence gets paid, Shawn Porter gets paid more than that, then what's stopping Shawn Porter from taking a rematch with Errol Spence, which he's guaranteed to make more money and do good pay-per-view buys? At the end of the day, boxing is a business first, is sport second. So Shawn Porter decides to take his business elsewhere. That's no fault to him. That's all fault to Bob Arum.
Right. I agree with you 1,000%. You brought up a lot of great points. And one thing we always got to keep in mind, Crawford don't have to give Porter an opportunity. Porter is the mandatory. He already put himself in position to fight. So all he got to do is activate his mandatory position, and he will get the fight. So as far as I know, if Shawn won it, he could really get it. As far as Bob, I don't understand why fighters at the top level still getting mistreated, because in the sport of boxing, it's an Ali Act. An Ali Act will protect the fighter from getting hustled. The Ali Act will force the promoter, the network, so on and so forth, to show the fighter the statistic and the revenue that's coming in and what he's supposed to be getting. So Crawford should be previewed to these things. You know, when it comes to Shawn, on the other hand, that's not his fighter, so he could care less if he's going to lowball him or not. You know what I'm saying? So if he could lowball him, you best believe he's going to try to do his best. That's why I explained earlier, Al Heyman is not going to allow that to happen. You're talking about the best manager in the game.
Yeah, no, I understand. No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, pay the fighter what he deserves. If the man's putting up the performances, if he's being consistent, if he's doing everything that he's supposed to do, then pay the man what they statistically say he deserves. I mean, Terence Crawford is a man who hasn't lost, who keeps knocking fighters up they put in front of him, and who keeps calling out the big names. He's bringing popularity to fights. He's keeping the fight of the decade, because even though he's the older fighter, he looks just as fantastic as he did when he first came into the welterweight division. So if you got a fighter who's being consistent, who's winning, who's not losing like Lomachenko, who's not cheating like Tyson Fury, who's doing you right, who's treating you right, and who's fighting in and out of the ring to make sure that this fight happens, then you absolutely should pay him. Right. I mean, I don't understand why Terence Crawford gets treated like this by Bob Arum, because at the end of the day, if Terence Crawford was a disloyal dude, he would have left PBC like he should have all those years back. And I wouldn't even consider him disloyal. I just consider him a smart man who realizes a snake behind him when he sees it, and that's Bob Arum. But instead, he decided to be more loyal than he should have, and he paid the price for it. And now he's in a position now for where if he doesn't leave PBC, fight of the decade may never happen, or may happen when he's so far out of his prime that it may not be the same fight that it is right now. So I personally think that Bob Arum should pay him. But at the same time, regarding the Ali Act and Shawn Porter, I think PBC should just buy it out anyway, because I think Terence Crawford showing his face on Showtime Sports and everybody seeing him, that brings more excitement to him, makes him a big name. in front of all of Showtime. People know who he is. People want to see him fight Errol Spence and stuff like that. So I think more will come if Al Heyman and PBC just buy it rather than Bob Arum try to lowball Shawn Porter. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And luckily for Terence Crawford, he happened to be on the coincidental list. That ain't a coincidence because Lomachenko and Tyson Fury, they get the benefit of the doubt because they got the complexion for the connection to get the ultimate protection, to get special benefits such as erasing losses, cover up cheating tactics, cover up failed tests, so on and so forth. So, Crawford just happened to be on the wrong hands. So, like you said, the wise thing to do is go to PBC. I truly believe he's just waiting till his contract is up so he won't get screwed over because he don't want any politics to come into play or maybe go to court and sit out for 2 years, which could definitely hurt him in the Errol Spence fight or just his legacy, period. So I think he just, he's like, let me just finish my contract. After that, I'll possibly head to PBC. I think that's what he got in plan.
Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the Bungle fight. Thanking you.
They call me the problem, but you could call me the can man, because anybody can get it. Africans, Americans, Dominicans, Mexicans, anybody can get it.